Christian Wood has been great for the Dallas Mavericks, and I personally have never doubted the man. In fact, he's done so well for the Mavericks, especially since joining the starting rotation, that the Mavericks are in a very complicated spot. Very, very difficult spot. They find themselves in a Christian Wood dilemma, and the only problem is he's playing too well. I'm not going to spend too much time talking about Wood's impact on the team. Him and Luka have a 121 offensive rating together. Just to give you a little bit of a little perspective here on that number, the Nuggets have the best offensive rating in the league at 117. So the Wood and Luka pairing is tremendous offensively. The trio of Luka, Wood, and Maxi Kleber have a net rating of 10 when on the floor together. This is one of the best lineups in the league, one of the best trios in the league as far as offensive output and defensive output goes, just mainly because you have a guy like Maxi Kleber who can, one, space the floor and also help make up for Christian Wood's defensive deficiencies. So hopefully Maxi Kleber comes back at some point, even though it sounds like that's maybe not going to happen. The Luka and Christian Wood pick and roll duo is the best pick and roll duo in the NBA, and the Christian Wood Spencer Dinwiddie pick and roll duo is the second best duo in the league. So by most numbers, Christian Wood is one of, if not maybe the best pick and roll player in the entire NBA. Offensively, it's been tremendous, and we kind of expected it would be pretty good, but defensively, this is where things are starting to get a little bit interesting. I'm not going to go too deep into it because Grant Afseth, hopefully I'm pronouncing that right, I'm more than likely am not, I'm horrible with names, wrote a great article about Wood's uptick defensively since joining the starting five that I'll link down in the description below if I remember. Hopefully I remember. I'll just touch on a few things though. Granted, this article was written before the Boston Celtics game, so it's very likely some of these numbers change because that was such an unbelievable ass whipping, but we'll just pretend that game never even happened, okay? Nobody in the league has contested more shots at the rim than Christian Wood since he has joined the starting five. And opponents have shot 15% worse at the rim when guarded by Christian Wood since he's joined the rotation. Now, I looked back, the starting rotation, that is. I tried to do some digging, and I found this number. I don't remember it. I don't have it written down. This is some great reporting, some great analytical deep diving by me. But I think that number was like +6 before he joined the starting rotation. So just in the span of a couple of weeks, opponents went from shooting like 5 percentage points better at the rim against Christian Wood to 15 percentage points worse. And the eye test really kind of backs that up. And it's not just that he's contesting shots and blocking shots. It's also, it feels like he gets at least one clutch block a game. Like in the final 3 minutes of the game, it feels like you're guaranteed at least one massive Christian Wood block where he's looking at the bench. Yeah, and everyone's like, yeah, it's great. So what's the problem? Well, Mark Cuban is in charge of personnel decisions. That's the problem. It's always been. I know. I've been saying that. It's always been the problem. The Mavericks are rapidly approaching a Jalen Brunson 2.0 situation here. We're about a month away from the trade deadline. Christian Wood is currently extension eligible. I think he became extension eligible Christmas Eve. I want to say somewhere around then. And he is set to become an unrestricted free agent at the end of the season. And we know how scary restricted free agency can be. One day you think you're locking up your guy forever. He's going to retire a member of your team. You're going to put his number up in the rafters. And then the next day, a picture of him when he was 3 years old wearing a New York Knicks tank top surfaces, and you just know you're fucked. Like the game's over. You lost. Now, it does sound like the Mavericks are at least talking to Christian Wood about an extension, but the problem is they can only offer him a 4-year, $77 million deal. That is the max they can offer him, $19 million a year annually, which feels like a complete and total steal for Christian Wood, given his production so far this season. Funny enough, the Mavericks use an AI program to help them determine player value called ProfitX. I have no idea. With these AI analytical companies, the way that it seems like it makes sense to pronounce their name is never the way they actually pronounce it, so I have no idea. This program helps determine how much a player is worth, whether or not it's good value or bad value for a certain contract. I think it compares, players across the league, which stats matter more than other stats. I really have no idea how it works, but I just know the Dallas Mavericks use this program to help them determine how much money they should be offering players. And while these numbers are behind a paywall, they are out there for anybody who has the means. And this program says Christian Wood is worth $26 million a year right now, given how he's played so far this season. Which, if I'm Christian Wood's agent, I'm going to Nico Harrison and Mark Cuban. I'm saying, hey, the program that you guys use to help you determine how much a player is worth says that my guy's worth $26 million a year. So what the fuck? You think I'm accepting your contract offer of $19 million? Get out of here. I call this the Pawn Stars negotiating tactic, right? This is easily worth $100,000. Yeah, I'll give you $30,000. Sometimes it catches the person you're negotiating with so off guard that they almost have to respect it. They almost have to say, oh, this guy really means business. Now, of course, there's other factors that play in, like realistically speaking, how many teams are going to have cap space available next season? And of those teams, how many of them are willing to throw close to $30 million a year to Christian Wood? I have no idea. It's been reported that the Mavericks want to offer him a 2-year max extension. So 2 years, whatever it would end up being, $30-something million a year. And honestly, this made people pretty upset on Mavs Twitter when it came out. I honestly don't think it's that bad of an idea. And I think that there's some pros and some cons for both the Mavericks and Christian Wood. For the Mavericks, obviously, it helps you open up cap space for 2025. I don't know what this shit is. Apparently, the Mavericks really want a clean cap sheet when it comes to 2025. For what? I don't know. If I had to guess and go take a peek, I guarantee you Giannis is a free agent then. This fucking franchise thinks for some reason Giannis wants to come and play in Dallas, even though why on earth would that be the case, huh? But if that's what you want to do, I get it, whatever. And I think for Christian Wood, it seems dumb at first, but then you realize this is a guy who's been on 7 teams in 7 seasons. He hasn't been on this is the first time he's really been in a winning situation. If I were the GM of the Mavericks, which I think I probably should be, I think I have a good case to be the GM of the Dallas Mavericks. I'd sit Mark Cuban, I'd sit Mark Cuban down and say some things, but I'd also sit Christian Wood down and say, hey, listen, man, 2 more years for you to help grow your value, playing alongside one of the greatest pick and roll ball handlers the league's ever seen, one of the best young playmakers the league's ever seen. Your value is only going to increase. You're playing in a winning environment. You can show teams around the league. You could show us, because we would love to bring you back in 2 years, but you could show us, hey, I can contribute to a winning environment, and come playoff time, I can succeed. And that's kind of the thing with Christian Wood. Do you risk going into unrestricted free agency after a playoff series? Let's just be honest. Like, the bigs that fit the play style of Christian Wood, they usually don't fare that well in the playoffs. Now, hopefully I'm wrong. Like, hopefully when the postseason comes around, Christian Wood's super locked in defensively and he can play. But I could also see a scenario where Christian Wood's getting played off the floor and Maxi's the one getting 35 minutes a game because they just need that switchability and that defensive versatility in a playoff setting. If that is the case, there's going to be pretty much 0 teams willing to offer Christian Wood probably even like $18 million a year. Like, it would probably be the same exact amount he's getting right now. It would also give Christian Wood the ability to hit free agency again at 29 years old, where he could capitalize on what should be a big cap spike and earn a lot more money. If Christian Wood's not interested in the 2-year deal, but would take the 4-year deal, I think the Mavericks should still do that. Like, $19 million a year for a player like this is good value. It's going to be great value by the end of the contract. And that's money, even if you want to open up cap space, that's a contract in a player that you could easily move on from. Like, you could easily trade that away. Like, there will be teams that will be more than happy to take that contract. The big dilemma, like, what if he doesn't want the extension? That's the big question. What if he doesn't want an extension? What if he wants to go test out his market in free agency? Then you have to ask yourself the question, should we trade him? And it seems like the Mavericks are interested in that, according to Mark Stein. Like, if Christian Wood doesn't agree to a contract by the trade deadline, which is February 9th, then the Mavericks would be interested in shopping him. This made a lot of Mavs Twitter upset as well, but this is 100% the right choice. This whole time, I thought Christian Wood was a 1-year Maverick player. Like, I just never really saw him being a Maverick much longer, and I thought that was just because the Mavericks didn't want him. Like, from the moment that trade happened, I thought that it was an NBA 2K trade finder type of trade. Like, the Mavericks had 5 guys they needed to get rid of. They needed to open up a roster spot, and they had a first-round pick that, by all accounts at the time, the Mavericks really weren't all that interested in keeping their first-round pick. So they just throw in the trade finder. Christian Wood pops up. Yeah, sure, fuck it. We'll bring on Christian Wood. Oh, it turns out he's actually good. Now we have this dilemma on our hands where do we give him the max contract extension we could give him? Okay, well, what if he doesn't sign that? Then what? We trade him? There's a question going around Mavs Twitter. Would you trade Christian Wood for 2 second-round picks and some expiring contracts, or let him walk in free agency for nothing? And if that's what the return is for Christian Wood, I would much rather just keep him, ride the season out. If he goes somewhere else, he goes somewhere else. But that's the dilemma the Mavericks are in. That's the same thing that happened with Jalen Brunson a year ago. And you really can't keep losing these guys for nothing. That's the problem. I can't believe I'm saying this, but I think the way the front office is handling this right now is for the best. Like, I think you try to negotiate a contract extension with them. I think it kind of benefits you in a way that you only have a certain number you can reach. It's not like you can offer him a max contract extension, right? Or super max or anything like that. You have a number that you can reach, and that's it. If he agrees to it, it's great value for you. Congratulations. If he doesn't, well, now you have the excuse to go to the open market. And it's interesting because the Mavericks usually don't leak things, and I think this is a very strategic leak. Like, it's the Mavericks being like, hey, listen, man, if you don't accept this, we will trade your ass. Like, you're in a great situation here, but if you don't accept this contract extension, we are open to trading you. But I think the return could be for Christian Wood. I have zero clue. Like, I actually don't know. I think that there are some contending teams out there like Denver, like the Clippers, like the Suns even, who could really use a big like Christian Wood. That would really help them come postseason time as a backup center. What would they be willing to give up? I'm not sure. Would the Mavericks be willing to trade him to a team that they could maybe even see in the playoffs a few months later? I have no idea. All I know is I'm scared. I'm so scared.